I am so honored, first of all, that this is your last trip before Vanessa gives birth. Ben and Vanessa, I'm so happy to have you together.
Thanks for having us. We've been dying to do this together. So this is a huge treat, especially with you. Like, I'm so happy that we connected in Ibiza and now we're here.
We really connected. And I mean, we've had Ben on. You guys have to listen. People loved your episode. And then being at Intelligent Change together and sitting with you guys was truly one of the highlights of the experience, because I've known you both separately. Like Vanessa, I've known you for a really long time.
Yeah.
We did an episode on YouTube, your Adderall detox, and I think it's one of the most viewed things I've ever shared on YouTube.
What's so funny is that I walked in here, I'm like, wow, we've really come a very long way from walking into you in your robe and then us like sitting on the floor, not even on the couch of your living room with your phone propped up on a little tripod. Like, wow, amazing.
So, I naturally really do rough it. Like people are really
but also
surprised
like
by
when
that.
people are just like you built something from nothing, and I don't think people quite understand that. Like, and I think one of the greatest things, because you just had the courage to just do it. You didn't like question yourself. It wasn't like, oh, this has to be perfect. I'm sure you battled that, but like at the same time, you just did it. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is what it's about.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to really know exactly what it is that, like, when people ask me that, I'm like, well, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I needed to keep showing up.
Right.
To bring this fire inside of me forward. And through that, right, through the building blocks, it starts to build into something.
Yeah. I think you've always had like a beautiful level of trust. Even like when I told you to be, so which kind of goes into the relationship thing, when I ran into you on the subway and I was sitting there and I was just, like, when are you and Noah going to get engaged? And I was like so obsessed with the idea of like, when is my boyfriend going to like, the whole thing. And you're just like, oh, whenever, it's just going to happen when it happens. And I'm like, how is she just so chill? Like, you're just in trust, in flow, which is really beautiful to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, not always, but I would say through a lot of work, I've gotten to that place of really giving over.
Right.
And not feeling like I need to be gripping at the wheel of life and controlling everything, because that is my natural state. And sitting with both of you at dinner, it was the second night we were in Ibiza. Your story just like, oh my God, it rocked me to the sense that I think so many people can relate, where you meet someone and you're just not in the place to have something really like develop and evolve between the two. And we just like, can you please share how it all started from the beginning? And I think what I loved most about that time, and what I really love about both of you separately, but then together, is how raw you are with how you share things.
Yeah. Vanessa's definitely better at...
I'm definitely a little bit more...
of the raw dog.
Yeah. Compared to Ben.
Yeah. But
Ben also has like, a certain... Like he's got like corporate America and stuff like that. Like he's got to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, but I think that the thing that I've learned from Vanessa is just to be more myself and be more authentic. And it's funny, so my journey into the relationship, that was my biggest lesson coming out of my last relationship, because I was in a 7-year relationship. And the biggest thing that I learned from that was I need to stay true to myself. That was my non-negotiable coming out of that relationship, because as soon as I started to do that, my life opened up. And I started to see more success in business because I was more true. And like you said, following that fire, I was suppressing that before. And my partnership wasn't allowing that to really be fed. And so that was my biggest knowing coming out of that relationship, is that I need to be true to myself. I will never, do that again because I could see the consequences. And so there was sort of a list of things that I made of values that I had, but also what I was looking for in a partner. I just was very clear on what those things were. And one of those things was I want to meet someone that encourages me to be more myself, right? And also that is an expander, that we don't rely on one another, but we are both independent, and together our worlds are bigger. And someone that loves to do the same things, loves the same friends, is into health and wellness. And then also because I was really starting my spiritual path, someone that was on a spiritual path. And so that was kind of I was very intentional. And so as I started to date, I was very quick to just sort of stop things if these things weren't there with the other person. There was nothing wrong with the other person. I was just like, this is not exactly what I'm looking for. I was very intentional. But it really stemmed from this feeling of needing to sort of fuel my true authentic self. And ironically, feeds into everything that I do, which isn't, at the end of the day, just not a surprise because it's the most important thing in my life. And so that's where I was kind of coming from running into V, but you were...
Well, we met on Hinge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't hear that part at the dinner.
We met on Hinge, which is so funny because, I was this girl too, but I hear often from a lot of people oh, I hate the apps, or I'm going to meet my partner organically. And I hate everybody on the apps,
Mm-hmm.
they're dumb or whatever their negativity is about the apps. What I realize is that the apps is just literally an energetic reflection. So what energy you go in with is what you literally get out of these apps. So,
Ooh.
it's so true. And so I would just it's even goes down to the point of what you're attracted to. So I just was I got to get on the apps. I can't have this ego. This is where we live now. This is just what's going on in the world. And if you want to broaden your scope of people rather than just your small bubble, then this is the way to do it. Yeah, you can travel and meet people, but the likelihood of really connecting, if you want to be really purposeful about what kind of values you want to match with, etc., I think the apps are a wonderful place if you can have this great attitude of I'm just going to meet new humans.
Yeah.
So I went on the apps and I saw Ben, and I had heard of Ben because his ex was a client of mine years ago. They'd been broken up for 2 years before I saw this, but she would always come in to the office and just rave about him, my Ben. So I was who is this guy, Ben? Anyways, I see him and I was oh, this is so weird. He's in a serious relationship,
Why is he on Hinge?
Why is he on Hinge? And so we ended up connecting on Hinge, and then he messaged me and I just didn't respond. And I was doing one of those too, where I was nervous about, I don't know, you connect with something, then you second guess it in your head, and it's just too much thought goes into it. So he DM'd me, and then the funny part is that it was just before Christmas time, and Christmas is a holiday for my mom, and it was we only had Christmas Eve to meet up, and that's when we celebrate. And I was just no. No,
I really wanted to meet up.
I'll see you in the new year.
Because
so cute.
I kind of knew, I knew of Vanessa, and then I'd seen some of her videos online. I was this is the same energy that I'm kind of looking for. So I was very eager to meet up the first time.
Very eager. It was,
so cute.
So pushy. I was this guy is so pushy. What is his deal? And so finally I went full, dressed. I was dressed to the nines, and I meet him at a coffee shop.
This is Christmas Eve. She's meeting me at a coffee shop.
Yeah. And he just kind of shows up, and he has this energy of a golden retriever with extreme ADD. He was
That's very cute. It's a very
I couldn't get a word in. It was I did all my shopping, and I got this and I did that, and what do you want to drink? And was just really all over the place, jokes, performances. I was just this is a lot. So after that, we just, whatever, I went away, and then in January, he asked me out again. I was oh, okay, I'll give it another shot. And then same thing happened at dinner. He was just so performative was my experience of him. Just not like super grounded, not connected. I just felt like I couldn't put my finger on this guy. It was just so much energy and kind of a energy that was all over the place. So yeah. So anyways, I mean, after like a few of those,
she basically we weren't dating, but we went on 3 dates and then she got another boyfriend. And she went away on a ski trip and she came back with a boyfriend. And I was like, I felt like it was like 80% there. Like there was definitely a connection, but I also couldn't quite put my finger on what it was that was not quite right. And I was really interested in figuring out what it was, because at the very least, like I could maybe learn about like myself, or I could sort of just for the next time figure it out. But I also, in the back of my mind, was I didn't put it out of the realm of possibility that we would be together. I was just like, maybe this is not the right time. But I'm really curious to see like why that didn't work out, right? And I actually tried to call her afterwards just to ask her.
which even like gave me the ick even more. Because I was like, why is this guy? No, not a call. It's a FaceTime, incoming FaceTime. And I'm like, this is so
I was very
bizarre.
persistent. I was definitely the Labrador energy.
You FaceTime.
I don't FaceTime her all the time. I had no filter. I was really pretty forthcoming.
He FaceTime like random, just like while he was like doing other things, just like FaceTime. I mean, it's not like we just met. Like I was like,
I was
he like washing dishes and FaceTiming me,
I didn't
and
have
I'm
a lot
like,
of time. I had to
You felt like
multitask.
he wasn't connecting just with you. Like he was always distracted doing something.
Yeah.
And it made you feel like he wasn't fully focused.
yeah, and I think because I'm a person who is who really like lives in the depth a lot of the time, which is great because Ben's energy pulls me out of that depth so I don't drown within myself. But I do really need a deep connection out of a partner. And so it's hard for me to navigate that. But also at the same time, I wasn't used to dating a guy that doesn't play it cool at all. Like there's not one. There was.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I think that is a compliment.
It is. There was not one game. There was not one move. There was not like nothing. It was just like, here I am. So it kind of, because of my, I don't know, conditioning, like how I grew up, what I was used to dating, it did, I was watching the show Nobody Wants Us on the Plane. It did give me the ick. It's like this feeling of just like, like what, which is wrong in a lot of sense, because he's nothing but joy and honesty and, just being fully himself, especially with his friends and people that he cares about. And so I was overlooking it. I totally overlooked it, and I had it wrong. Sure, he had some work to do, as did I, but I really just like put him in a box, put a stamp on it, and I was like, bye.
So when he called, you didn't
pick up.
answer?
No.
Okay. Did you email?
Straight decline. No, I was like, okay, unfazed. I probably tried again, probably. And then I thought, well, if I bump into her, I'm gonna ask her. I was very much like, at some point, I'll ask her. And then I kind of moved on and I thought, keep in mind, I'm 6 months out of a long relationship. And so my focuses are, at that time, reconnecting with myself, basically, because that was my biggest sort of aha moment. So I'm reconnecting with the people I love in my life, my friends. I'm working on my business, and I'm having a ton of fun. And I'm in that stage. And about 6 months after that, I remember I'm having a conversation with some friends, and someone asked at the table, like, what's the big change you want this year? What do you want to focus on? And I hadn't thought about it, but it comes to me and I say, I think I'm ready to focus on myself, to be the person I want to be for my partner. And that's when I signed up for a Hoffman process, which is like a 1-week personal development that most of my friends had done, and everyone had said is the most important thing they'd ever done in their life. And I started to double down on the personal work because I had come back to my baseline. I'd come back to myself, and now I was ready to go to the next level and or deeper. And I doubled down on therapy. I got an energy healer. I'd never worked with one before. I didn't even know what one was. And I was just like sitting on Zoom with this, with this man, for 2 hours with my eyes closed doing something. And I started to feel like I was really starting my spiritual path, even though I'd done personal work before, but this felt like I was really getting into it and getting clear on what I wanted and in my life. And what was funny was, my perception of Vanessa in those early days was there was like a shield. There was she was protecting herself.
Toughness.
Yeah. Because she had a tough upbringing and she needed, that's what she needed to do to survive.
Yeah.
And also with guys, that's what she did to navigate.
Right.
And there was this, sort of like closing off and protecting the feminine and then being more masculine. And so I felt like there was something else there, but I wasn't sure. And that's why I wanted to, I was just curious.
Right.
And so, but I wasn't really thinking about Vanessa that much. But I'd run into her friends every once in a while and I'd be like, hey, how's Vanessa? And I'd learned that she had a boyfriend now. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, how serious is it? And she's like, oh, they're looking for rings. And I was like, okay, that's pretty serious. So then I thought, well, I guess she's not my girl. Like that's literally, but in the back of my mind, sometimes I would think of her and that was pretty much it. So, cut to Vanessa, she gets into this really long-term relationship after she ghosted me, basically.
Very really long term, 1 year. It was 1 year,
right.
yeah. But it's when that
Someone that checked the boxes.
checked the boxes. I was checking boxes. But, it was the first relationship where I learned what a real fight is, not like little things, but about things that really matter in life, like how to raise children, belief systems, things like that. So when I left that, I was following Ben on Instagram, and he's the fun guy. He has so much, like, it's like one fun trip and fun friend and fun this. And I was like, he has a lot of fun. Maybe he's got some fun friends. So I actually slid into his DM first, just like talking about, like, he had this viral video about his dad taking mushrooms. And so like I messaged him about that.
That is the funniest video.
It's
No, like
my dad will forever be
mushroom dad.
it was
the
an
mushroom dad.
accident. Like
It was an accident. Yeah, my dad accidentally ate my chocolate mushrooms, and he thought he had food poisoning. And then I asked him what he ate, and I found out quickly that he ate mushrooms. And he's laying in bed, and he says, "Oh, thank God! I thought I had food poisoning. It's just psilocybin." And then we had dinner,
True
and
hippie.
it was just he was absolutely hilarious. So yeah, the video is definitely a laugh.
it's so good.
Ironically, that's what brought us back
Wow.
into connection after, and I think you were going through the same thing, ironically, that I was going through, which was sort of, you hit this sort of point where you realize after your last breakup that the only common denominator in all these, failed relationships was you.
Yeah.
Mm.
You can't, I realized I have to stop playing the blame game. Like, where is my life going to go? I'm the only person in all of these relationships that I can hold myself accountable. And it takes two to tango, and I can't play the victim anymore. So I got really serious. I was like, what am I not doing? Or what am I doing too much of? Or what is it that I need to work on where I'm even just choosing partners that, maybe they fit at first, but it's just not the right fit at the end of the day. And what can I do to be more magnetic to the person that I'm looking for? And I wasn't even quite exactly sure what I wanted, but I knew how I wanted to feel. So I hired a spiritual therapist coach, and we were on 2.5-hour sessions weekly. I was in hypnotherapy weekly to hypnotize myself out of self-limiting beliefs, because at the end of the day, I still had these narratives. No matter, I felt like I did so much work, but because my relationship that had just ended, he had 2 kids, and I had never been with somebody with kids, and not growing up without a dad and not having this experience. And when you enter into, like, honestly, God bless anybody who enters into, to be a step parent, I think is a saint, because whether the kids are amazing, welcoming and amazing, or they're not, regardless, you're sharing a lot of love, and you do not come first. And that was really hard for me to process. And I was very hard on myself about it. And I tried to go into therapy to try and overcome that. And then I realized, well, this is okay, that this is just not for me. This is just not in my highest good. It's not going to help me. It's going to challenge me. It's going to show the mirror that I need to, but I haven't felt pain like that since I was 8 years old. So I had to leave because I wasn't going to be good for these kids.
Just not being chosen.
Yeah, not being first, not being chosen, getting used to sharing this time and this space. He's had these kids for, 8, 12 years. I come in, I'm brand new. And even though I was fully welcomed with open arms, it was such a gift because it brought up all of my insecurities, all of the things that I thought I'd worked on. Whoa, it was just like, took me right back to childhood pain. And it was honestly hard for me to watch him sometimes with his kids because I didn't have that. I didn't have that dad. So I hired this spiritual coach, and a lot of her work is around Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, the pain body. And my pain body is, I can't have that. So like, I look at situations, whether it's a dad with his kids or a marriage or pregnant people, and I walk around, well, I can't have that. That's not for me. And also, I don't get picked because my dad didn't pick me. But this underlying story I had just spiraled out of control in everything. I don't get picked in work things. I don't get picked in, friendship things. And when you believe this about yourself, you look for confirmation outside of yourself for this. And then all of a sudden you're manifesting your worst nightmare. And that's what was happening. I would get so far and then I would just push myself back again. And I would get so far and then I would push myself back again. So I got really, really, really serious about working on myself while still like going on dates and, even though I wasn't quite ready to date, but just trying to use those experiences as an opportunity to witness myself and witness where my mind goes. As soon as the first day, as soon as you sit across, like, what am I thinking about? Am I judging them? Am I judging myself? Or am I playing like, some weird future game of like imagining what our lives would be together, Or am I sitting there going, are you my daddy? Like, what is going on here? So I use that as an opportunity. And when Ben had messaged me after we're just just responding people to each other's stories, not even consistently. He thanked me because I was like on this really intense meditation kick, and he thanked me for posting something that I wrote. And
which this is kind of important because it's sort of, this is the reason we reconnected. She posted this story about her meditating, and it just said every damn day. And it actually made me meditate. Like, I thought about it. And then I thought I should message her. And then I thought, no, that's stupid. Like, and then it happened again. I thought I should message her. And I said, no, in my head. The third time I said, okay, I've thought about this 3 times. Like, I'll message her. And this message was the thing that ultimately reconnected us. And she asked if I wanted to catch up. And then we went on like a non-date date, basically. I thought it was a date. She didn't realize it was a date. And, but it just goes back to this, I think there's this thing that I've realized is really important, is like just the intention of, I don't know, you can call it manifesting, you can call it achieving, this thing that you're trying to go after, or just live the life that you want. But ultimately, I think one of the things that I've realized is that you can pretty much manifest anything. You can make anything happen. And it's not about just charging towards the thing that you want. It's about having the intention of moving that way and continually moving yourself forward, and opportunities will present themselves.
Right.
And by the way, if it doesn't work out, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that information to be like, oh, okay, great. Now I know. And that's kind of what I was looking for. I just wanted to know. And so reconnecting with Vanessa, the intention was just to understand what she wanted. because I was pretty clear at that point what I wanted. And I just was curious if she wanted the same
You still
thing.
wanted her.
I wanted to know, I wanted her if she wanted the same things that I wanted in a partner and in life. And I didn't know that. And I also wanted to figure out sort of what this disconnect was. And so in reconnecting, it was like, oh, this is my opportunity now to understand if this might be a fit. And that's kind of all I was looking for. And I think that
But your energy had also drastically
oh,
shifted.
I was a completely different person. That's why it kind of ended up.
So did
flipping.
yours.
Right. That first dinner we had, it was just, I was still definitely guarded because I also sat there, I was confused. I'm like, why is this guy so interested in me? I really thought that, which says a lot about a lot of things that were going on in my mind. But because I wasn't I wasn't very open and loving. I had a bite to me. I had an edge. I was closed off.
Yeah.
But I was observing him, and this dinner we had, he was just calmer. He wasn't excitable. He wasn't, performing in any way. He kept eye contact. He was so much deeper. And I was like, wow, this is such a different experience. And
Like an older Labrador.
yeah, Labrador has been
You
around
went
the
through
block
training.
a few times.
Yeah, I went through puppy training.
I mean,
So it was nice.
I have to say, because what you were just saying, first of all, I feel the same way about manifesting. Manifesting isn't just like, oh, let's call in everything. Anything is possible. It's about aligning your actions to meet the desires that you would like to become a reality, right? Like when you are actually doing the things every day, and this is where you have to look under the hood. Like you really have to be honest with yourself. And I don't think a lot of people are really willing to do that. And what really, I feel like I was so enamored by your story. I was like intoxicated by everything because it's the level of just wisdom and intelligence that you both have, but your ability to see your shit and to actually like get to work on that instead of, like you said, which I see so much of myself in you and the Vanessa that I knew for many years to the Vanessa that you are now, is you have had one of the greatest transformations of anyone I've ever met in my life. I came home, I swear to you, I said to Alice, to Kim, I was like, Vanessa is it's like you evolved. So your energy completely changed. And we got along before, but I have the same toughness you have. I don't let people in easily. I can come off really friendly, but you were tough to get in. And you were, and like you scared me a little bit. Like I was like afraid of you, but not in like, I swear I'm not afraid of anyone, but you just had this way about you. And I said this to you at dinner and I was like, what was it? And you said you were judgy.
Of course. I was so insecure, especially in those early days in New York before I began any of this journey. Like my insecurity made me just, you start to judge others because you think it's making you feel more comfortable about yourself, but really just a reflection of how you feel about yourself. So then I'm looking at you and I'm more fascinated. I'm fascinated and I'm intimidated at the same time because you come off as this, just like, I'll never forget that conversation on the subway when you're just very, super friendly, super honest if someone asks you a question, and just like loving and happy, like joyous. I know that, we all go through our stuff, but like at the end of the day, like you choose joy. You choose to be that. You're not going to choose to stay in this other area. And I think I was still in a place where I was choosing to like have that like chip on my shoulder and to hold that resentment or that anger for whatever was or is, And I looked at people who were expanders, and you're one of them because you're just very heart-centered, really, is just more, I think, what it is. And I was so blocked by so many things, Adderall and things that I just never worked on, stories that I told myself that are just, I think we all have stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, and we're not even aware of them because they're so deep. It's just on autopilot.
And we believe them.
And we believe them wholeheartedly. And it starts to dictate how the trajectory of our life goes. And it's a speeding train until you really decide, like, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to stop this. Like, I'll never forget my hypnotherapist said to me, Vanessa, you don't want to necessarily choose a man or partner that feels like home, because home wasn't such a great place to begin with, was it? And I was like, oh, wow, like that is so true. Like, I am really trying to repeat this environment that I'm just used to, that's my comfort zone, is having a little bit of struggle, is having that combat at home. And which is really crazy.
That's deep.
What was interesting too, so one of my good friends grew up with Vanessa. Good friend, Jesse Israel. Amazing man.
Oh, love Jesse.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so great.
And so Jesse went to high school with Vanessa. So when we reconnected, I had a hot tub with Jesse. I don't know why I don't have many hot tubs, but I was having a hot tub with Jesse. And Jesse has a lot of hot tubs. And so, I said, you never believe it. Like, I reconnected with Vanessa, and we went on a date, and we're going on a second date. And he said, wow, I'm so interested to see what happens here. And I said, me too. And I said, I feel like, because he knows her well, I feel like Vanessa, she has this shield up and she's very hard. And I had started to realize that I was gravitating towards A-type women that were like, CEOs or powerful, and really masculine. And he said, you might want to think about connecting to more of the feminine. And I said, so interesting. I feel like Vanessa, she has that shield, but there's a feminine underneath that is not like either she's not tapping into or not letting me access. So cut to one of the things that Vanessa did in her journey between us having the gap of seeing each other was going to do ayahuasca. And I mean, it's a long story, but basically one of the things that she came to was this realization that she was holding up the shield and not connecting with her feminine. And I think that when that happened and she came back from that experience, that's when we basically started dating at that point.
Yeah. And I think there's room for both. It's not to like, I think women should celebrate their masculine side, their go. I love being ambitious. I love ambitious women. But we have become, a lot of us, because of our trials and tribulations, harder and harder and harder and harder, and just kind of put up this masculine force. And then we sit around going, I really want to meet a man, but there are no men out there. But that's because we're castrating them half the time.
Oh.
With what we believe about men, and that we can do everything on our own, and that we don't need a man. And fine, like, you don't need a man, then what are you calling in? And it's this, I had this realization when I started saying, sometimes I would just say it to my mom just to, because I was pissed at her asking me about my dating life, just to sort of like take it to her every time. She'd be like, have you been on any dates? But I, kept saying, I'm fine. If I don't meet anybody, I'm okay with that, and I'm fine. And I don't need to meet anybody. But at the end of the day, like, I wasn't. That's actually not how I felt. But I was saying that, and I was putting it out there, and words have power, and you start to believe them, and you start to shut down even more and more and more and more. And I think we need to get to the place where it's not a weakness. You're not going to jinx anything. This isn't a superstitious game to say, no, I want a partner. Like, I want to meet my partner. It doesn't make you look less than or weak or whatever it is, if that's what you really want, whatever your partner looks like for you. And once I could get comfortable saying that alone just started to open me up a little bit more. Start to take the walls down, and then through therapy. And then, you know, he's talking about ayahuasca, like, while I don't think plant medicine is for everyone, and I don't want to say it's the end all be all, because you really have to do the work after. And I think a lot of people will go to do these things and think it's going to fix it and then do it again and again and again. But it took that to really break me open, because that's just how I remember going to Joe Dispenza a year prior, and all I could see was cement. Like every time we go into meditation, it's like cement around my heart. And the cement was so thick. So it took something just so intense to just shatter me completely. And what it showed me is that I don't respect men. I want a man and I don't respect men. I think that at the time, I thought they were all pansies. I thought that they were all, less than me. They were all, I could do better. I was stronger. I was smarter. I was all of these things. But that's literally my own insecurity and protection mechanism from the men and lack thereof that had showed up in my childhood. And, even the way my mom thinks about men and the way that she treats men, it's conditioned. But again, I'm not the victim. Like, it can't, I was a child a long time ago, can't still blame mommy for my issues now.
Thank God.
It's my issues. So it showed me what I had become, essentially, because that's one of the things they say is like, show me who I've become. And I've become this person who actually plays a game of vulnerability. Like, I'm playing a charade. It's not true vulnerability. And I've not open to love, real love. I don't let love in, period. Even from other females, even from friends. Like, it's like, you can come this far.
Yeah.
And then that's how comfortable I am. And it just went on. Like, and it just showed me that there is power in submission to the masculine, because if you allow them to hold space for you, like a real man will show up and hold space for you to fully thrive and blossom and bloom and do all the things. And you can equally support and hold space with the feminine. And that's what creates that polarity that we all, know and love so much, sex, all of it. And it said that it's very strange. Like, when you have sat with medicine, essentially ayahuasca is a spirit. They talk about it like spirit. So the spirit is speaking to you. And it was just like, Ben is your greatest teacher in love and in life. And I've sent him down for you. And you've created him out of your consciousness when you were a kid. And I've created this man and you're ruining it.
Wow.
Like, you're fully ruining it. And you've treated him awfully. You haven't even looked at him or considered him. You are so caught up in your stuff and your stories and all this sort of stuff that your life is you're going to pass by every gift if you continue on this path. And then I just found myself like outside in the grass, like crying, puking, talking to this guy, like, and apologizing to Ben. Like, I thought I was talking to Ben. And
they removed you from the room.
They removed me.
They
removed me every night they removed me. So basically we're in this, for me, it's hard. Like, if I'm like going to go all in, I'm like going to full send. And the great thing is I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was like, oh, I've taken mushrooms before. Like, I can do drugs in the jungle. It's not that at all. I got my ass handed to me. So basically I would go up because which is also probably the way, since it's a spirit, it's working with you. So this is my impatience. I wouldn't feel anything. So I kept going up to drink more and more and more and more. So then,
oh my God,
5-7 cups would hit me at once. And then it would be my reaction was so violent that they would remove me from this thing they call the Moloko, where everyone's supposed to heal together. Because what you realize is when one person heals, you're healing everyone around you. So I'm so passionate about people doing the inner work and healing themselves. The planet would be a better place. So, and before, when I walked in there, I was like, I'd like my own room and to do it privately and not to be around anyone else. And it's just,
I am so you.
It does, yeah, totally. But then you're in there and you're like, another man is throwing up, and all of a sudden you feel this huge relief in your body, and you're like, that guy just moved energy for me. He just took my pain from me and it channeled through him and he let it go. It's we are doing that daily. Every time someone heals and works on themselves, the more fear and anger is a disease and it spreads really fast. So if we can if we can raise our consciousness and be more embodied, present in ourselves, because, depression is focusing on the past and anxiety is focusing on the future, to be here now, everything would be better, the planet would be better. So long story short with
And when
this.
she said she got like removed from the milk, they had to physically restrain her, lift her up,
Yeah.
put her outside, and
You were gripping at the grass.
I was gripping at the grass, I had my claws in the grass, and this guy came out and he was like, I want you to lay on your stomach on the grass, like with your hands out. And I was like, what, am I being arrested by Mother Nature? Like, what's happening? I was screaming and crying and my nails were going in the grass, and he ungrips my hand and he starts petting the grass. He's like, you will be soft, you will be gentle. And it was like so many messages just came in. It was like masculine versus feminine, the way I treat the earth, how I, consume and abuse the earth, how I consume and abuse men. Like, it was just like all this stuff all at once, and teaching me the power of the feminine, how there is so much power in femininity. And once I let go, I just wept. I wept harder than I ever have. And it was breaking your heart open is so painful. For me, it's so painful. Even now, like being pregnant, I'll have these moments where it's just like my biggest fear of actual birth, giving birth, I don't think is the pain. I think it's my heart breaking open even more. And I'm terrified of that vulnerable place. I'm terrified of Ben to see me there. I'm terrified of like truly opening. Like I had one night where I was really feeling like, it wasn't Braxton Hicks, but I was feeling sensations in my body that were so different than what I have ever felt. And all I could do was just sob to Ben. And I was like, it's so uncomfortable for me still, but there's nothing more rewarding. There's nothing more rewarding to just allow yourself to break, and break in a way it's like, not like, again, the victim mindset, but just like, my heart can't handle, like I haven't felt this much love before, and it's painful. And just to like be present in love, it's a lot. And so I really thank that ayahuasca experience for getting me there, because after that the veil lifted off of Ben, and I was just like, oh my God, like I'm so sorry I didn't see you. Like, thank God you're still here. Yeah.
I would FaceTime with her right after every ceremony at like 2 a.m.
He's asleep most of the time. But...
So I would get the whole, and she would send me voice notes too afterwards, which were just...
He did your podcast while I was in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wait, while.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Remember you asked me if I was dating anyone?
Yes,
and I was
after.
And I was like, no. But so this is right during... So she basically...
you were like...
She told me that she loved me for the first time on FaceTime before she went into the final ceremony, because she was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this, so I'm just going to say I love you. So
you thought it would, like, you couldn't take it?
No, I was like, I don't know. I was like, I could die, because you feel like you're dying.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're terrified. It feels like you're facing your death, because you are. It's an ego death. It's a metaphorical death, but you're facing your death every night. So it's like, I better say this now. And
just in case it's an actual death.
Yeah.
And I was feeling very connected to her throughout this whole experience, and this might be like too far out there woo-woo, but I was actually having dreams of things that would happen to her in ceremony. And I was like, I had this crazy dream last night. And she said, that actually happened. So we were very connected throughout that process. And that was sort of I think the catalyst for us, and the bedrock of our relationship. Sort of grew from there. I do want to also just reiterate that, ayahuasca is not for everyone. It's actually not for me. I've tried it.
It scares me, to be honest with you.
I've tried it and I had a bad experience. And I think that it is so powerful for so many people, and it's also not right for a lot of people. And like Vanessa said, you really, like, I saw her go through that experience, but then do the work afterwards to integrate all the learnings. And that is the hardest part. And because it cracks you open, if you don't then take the time to do the work to learn, to integrate what you've learned and continue to implement those learnings into your life, it's just it's a big movement. So,
Right.
I just mentioned that because a lot of people talk about ayahuasca, and it's no joke. And I think you really have to be
There's so many
careful.
ways to
Yeah.
heal.
I
There's so
also
many
think you
ways.
feel called to do it,
I think so
right?
too.
Like
Yeah.
when I hear your experience right now, I'm like, I want to do it
Yeah.
because it makes you think like, what else am I And
Yeah.
I think just hearing you share so vulnerably, it's like so emotional when you just like listen to your words because who can't relate to what you're saying?
Right.
And there are elements within all of us that have these walls that we built and these masks that we put on. And hearing you speak so openly about it
Right.
makes you look inside yourself like, where am I doing this? And it makes you think like, okay, well, I want to do that to see what else it is. But I do think it's like this visceral call.
Mhm.
And I personally, I haven't had that feeling. I mean, when I hear you speak about it, it ignites something for sure.
It's almost like you'll just know because you'll end up, that's what happened to me. You just like end up there and you just don't know exactly how you got there or why you're there, but you're just there.
Mhm.
Right.
You're like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
And there's no, you can leave. But
Yeah. And
for
she
me,
went,
there's no turning back once I commit. I'm
Right.
going to do it.
Same.
Yeah.
I think it's important to go to the right place. She went to this place called Rhythmia, which is quite good. And there are quite a few good places, but that one is like,
It's the
there's
only like medically
doctors.
licensed facility in the world.
Yeah.
So they have
Where is it?
paramedics, Costa Rica.
Okay.
So that's why I felt comfortable. There's paramedics on staff. There's, people thought I was doing a partnership with them. No, I fully paid for my ayahuasca experience. I just shared it because it was so profound to me. And some people were triggered by my sharing, but most were very grateful. A lot of people ended up going, but a lot of people sought help somewhere. There's so many ways to heal. There's no one way to heal.
Yeah. I would say too,
Right.
I think do you still have the highlights on your story, the Rhythmia?
Yeah.
I would, if you're interested, check out her highlight.
Oh, you
reel.
have the best highlights.
Like her Rhythmia.
I'm just like things you share. I'm like, I watch them all.
Yeah,
We'll
she's
talk about one
very
if you
open
want
and
to.
honest about her experience. Things coming out both ends, like it's wild, but it definitely. I like for me too as well. Like I might do it one day, and it would have to be something that I'm called to do. I found Hoffman process like to be for me the most transformational, and I think that's a great thing for people to look into as well.
I've heard incredible stories,
Yeah.
but I've also heard stories of people that just felt like they revisited trauma that
Yeah,
they felt
I've
like
seen
they
the same
worked
thing.
through.
Again, integration,
Right.
like consistent
You gotta
therapy.
do the work
Like
after.
I know
Right.
you talk about therapy, like
Yeah.
working with somebody regularly, like
Mhm.
even when times are good. Look, people often say, right, when you look at relationships on Instagram, don't believe what you see because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Yes and no. Like I would say if you're watching us, you can believe what you see because I share it. Like I will be completely honest with you. But I also looked at those relationships and I would create a mood board as like, this is rather than when I started to shift out of judgment and jealousy and envy and all that sort of stuff. And this can't happen for me. This is the kind of thing that I would like to call in. But sure, relationships are work. It just depends on like, what is the perfect relationship for you? Like,
Right.
what is your ideal? And some people, they argue all the time and they like love it. It's their thing, and it works for them and they're in a strong relationship. That's not the case for Ben and I, but we did have at the beginning, like I'd say like 7 months in, where we'd have these weird things. It wasn't even like an argument. It was just a disconnect all of a sudden. And it's scary because all of a sudden you're sitting across from somebody who you feel like this with, especially in the honeymoon stage. And then you're like, I don't know this person all of a sudden.
Like what
So,
kind of disconnect?
Yeah. I think one time it happened, we went to Joshua Tree to
A friend's party.
A friend's party or
we ended
something.
up back at the house and we were talking about marriage and kids.
Yeah.
And essentially we were both in our pain bodies because
Yeah.
Ben ended up
Do you want to
working.
explain quickly pain body?
Your pain body is the story that you tell yourself. So
Based on childhood. So effectively, like you something happened or the way you were brought up, you sort of developed this pattern out of survival which happens to most people. It's actually this, like Eckhart Tolle talks about it. It's the same principle as Hoffman too. They call it your negative love pattern. And this thing that you start to do, like, Vanessa's dad left before she was born, didn't have
Well,
a
he
dad.
didn't pick me.
He
So
didn't
like
pick me.
it comes down to one sentence, something so simple. And like that becomes, it might morph into other things, but that's the basis of it. Like I don't get picked, and I can't have that.
And this
I
kind of
can't
runs
have
in the
that.
background, and a lot of it unconsciously makes decisions for you
And Ben's
because
is about control.
but it's been so ingrained since you were young out of survival, right? So it used to keep you alive sort of in quote unquote when you were young, because you did it to sort of justify why these things happened that are out of your control. So you can, and then you get older, and it doesn't serve you, but it still runs. And so identifying what that thing is really important. One, because it can hold you back in your life, but also it can hold you back in relationships. And it's also important to know what your partner's pain body is, because then you know what's going on and you know how to show up for them in moments where they might be being unreasonable, which might just be like, this is ridiculous. What are you doing? When in fact, the proper response is like, I understand why you're doing this. I'm going to be here for you. And then we can talk about this later, and then work through it, but not in this moment where you're triggered.
Right. Or you don't want to add to the trigger.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we behave out of our triggers and make it about the other person.
Mm-hmm.
When we get annoyed, when we get shut down, whatever it is. And Ben's pain body is about control.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in a household that was like, just hippie free, everything. There's no boundaries
A lot
really.
of mushrooms.
No boundaries in his household. And I think he came into this world, his God-given temperament was needing more structure and control. I mean, he's a Capricorn. You're a Capricorn.
Sag.
Oh, you're Sag.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're both generators.
Yes.
So he really needed that control. So that's like his thing. And essentially the disconnect, like this one example was we were having conversation about marriage and kids, and all I could hear, because perception is reality, and we were having this conversation, is that he wasn't interested in one day getting married or having kids. That's not what he was saying, by the way. But that's all I could hear coming out of his mouth. And all he could hear from me was like this pressure ultimatum, thing going on. But that's not how I felt I was communicating. But anyways, it caused this rift. We even spoke the whole car ride back about it, could not move past it. Then we got on with our therapist, because he started working with her too. And she just like nailed it and just pointed out like how it's like two kids, essentially, children who have grown to adults with these pains, and how we were just coming from the place of pain, and how to understand the other person, and how what we thought the other person was saying was not what the other person was saying. And the power of communication is so real. The power of this pain body, it's almost like a love language, but the opposite. Where's your pain?
Pain language.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it really shifted. It totally changed. And then we didn't have an issue about that again afterwards. But the more aware you become, like when I ended up doing the Hoffman process because I was inspired by Ben, but I would do these things because I would find myself like, Ben and I were living together early on, and he would, come home, be so excited about a work venture and like have all this work stuff going on. And if my work was like feeling like slow, I mean, I have a private practice and I go into my private practice every day. But if I don't feel like I'm doing 5 million other things, like always expanding and doing something new, I compare myself. So I was comparing myself to my partner, who I should also be celebrating and lifting up. But this is my thing. And just my behavior was just so shut down, annoyed, irritated, and this is where relationship problems start to begin.
Yeah. And I think it's so important because a relationship rarely ends with a huge blow up moment, right? It's these little things that add up over time. And all of a sudden, you feel a certain way, or you have these frustrations, and you're kind of like, what is going on? Why do I feel this way? And how did we get here? And oftentimes it's coming from these things running in the background, that if you don't start to become aware of what those things are and then intentionally get ahead of them, and that's why I feel as though, I mean, we're talking about a lot of personal work. And so I think it's important to mention that, like, this work it costs money, right? Like
Yeah.
I worked really hard to be in a place where I could do this stuff, but there also are things that you can do that aren't as expensive as going away to an ayahuasca
But
retreat.
also, all these places have scholarships.
True, Hoffman has a scholarship, Rhythmia has a scholarship. There's ways to get therapy,
And they're not hard to
subsidized, and also there's a lot of different avenues. I just want to mention that, but
I love that. It's important.
when it comes to like doing some sort of couples coaching or therapy before you have an incident, I like the analogy of like a tune-up for your car. Like you send your car for a tune-up before it's broken. You if you send it in once it breaks down, it's too late. Like it's broken down, So you go in, you get it checked, they change the tire, they change the oil, and it keeps running. Like you need to do that for your relationship just to continue to learn about where the potential nails in the road are, roadblocks or whatever. And that's all it is. You just learn about yourself and the other person throughout this process so you can continue to grow in the same aligned direction.
Right. And it keeps you connected even as you could essentially be growing in different directions or different paces, but you stay, like you see each other.
You see each other. And by the way, maybe you are growing in different directions and that's totally fine.
Right.
If you both understand kind of where you want to go and where the other person wants to go and that you still are connected, and because I think it's important that everyone has that autonomy to be their own person. But I just think that it's really, it's about understanding what the other person's pain body or patterns are so that when they happen, you don't react the way 99% of the world would react.
Or
which
take
is,
it personally.
Yeah, which
Right.
is like, oh, that's fucked up. Like, what are you doing?
Right. I get irritated too.
Yeah.
And
And it's like, you can have those feelings, but if you know and you have that empathy of where that's coming from, then you don't react and you understand. And you can still be pissed off and you can still express that. But your first reaction is out of empathy and love, being like, this, I can see really triggers you and there's something going on. And so let's just take a second to get out of this situation. Let's take a break. Let's breathe and let's talk about it. But I'm here for you and I support you. And then after that, it's funny, like we're reading these books about parenting. We're not reading these books. We're reading one book and we've gotten about 5 chapters in and that's about it.
What's the book?
It's Good Inside.
Told you, Good
Oh
Inside.
yeah, Dr. Becky.
So Dr. Becky, this is a good one. And I've realized it's the same thing with kids, right? When kids have a tantrum or any, big feeling, they're having these big feelings. And if you try and teach them in that moment and say, you shouldn't do this, this is wrong, or what are you doing? You can't learn in that state of elevated cortisol and in that experience of all of this stress and feelings, right? So you need to sort of let those feelings come out in a healthy way and then come back and be like, hey, remember that when you sort of had those big feelings?
Yeah.
Like we kind of need to talk about that because XYZ. And it's sort of sometimes the same with your partner. Like it's human beings. We all do that with anybody, with
Right.
a coworker, right? With anybody that has a moment. I mean, we're going through this experience where we're dealing with someone and this person is like just not acting like a good person. And it's just again and again. And even talking with our like therapist about this, and she's like, the way through this is because you want to have control and you can't, right? Because this person is acting like, is empathy. Think about this person. Think about things that are happening to them. Like put yourself there and understand why they are doing this. And as soon as you do that, the charge kind of gets a little less.
It doesn't excuse it necessarily,
No.
but at the same time, it just helps you to understand like the humanness of
Right.
everyone.
Yes.
And how you can take the charge down. Because by being so angry and charged, it's really not, I don't think, that person's losing any sleep at night necessarily, but we are.
Right.
So to lose that charge and understand like, that must be really hard for them, right? Still have the boundary, still be like, you still can't behave this way. Like this isn't the right way to behave, but it takes away that extreme pain of what you're going through.